Hamilton from Audible Elegance here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We have a website, audibleelegance.com. Please visit it. We have an orphanage where we have a lot of used gear coming in, being the season. We do work on Facebook, Instagram, and X, and I have a monthly blog. I do enjoy those. Tonight I'm going to get into one of those calls as I express my feelings about them. And that's when you're dealing with an older player or an older product, let's say 15 to 25 years of age, all right? So we're not really talking about the classics, which people really enjoy, like the old Pioneers and that sort of stuff, because there were no old Pioneer CD players. And also a bit about marketing and what happens. And tonight's donation is from Class A. It's essentially a 19-year-old CD player. It is not representative of what they build today, so don't make that assumption. And what you're going to see, and I'm going to show, is fairly typical of what was going on in the industry at that time, which followed upon what was going on in the what people consider the collectible electronics. So let's get started. This player was brought to us because the drawer would not open, and I'll remove the lid and start in it. And what we discovered very quickly was that the drive belt had actually dry rotted and was fractured in little tiny pieces all over the place. So the assumption was replace the drive belt and we've got a good machine. Now this machine, along with a number of other pieces from this gentleman's system, were put in a storage unit. Allegedly was temperature controlled, but I'm not so sure about that based upon what we're seeing out of the rest of his equipment. And so what we do is we fire it up and open it up. In this case, we don't have a drive belt, so I'm going to manually do it and start showing you bits and pieces of what we have. In this design from Class A, it was very lovely that here's your motor for the drive. This is the assembly here. So very, very convenient to replace the drive belt. Kudos on that, because some of them can be real nightmares. Unfortunately, once the drive belt was replaced and the drawer was operating perfectly, the motor itself would not spin up. So we were thinking maybe it was bound up because it was sitting. And here you can see from the side, I'm going to turn the machine so it's easier to photograph. We applied a little lubrication to the upper area, trying to make sure that it wasn't seized. The seizing problem is actually very common in the older Denon CD players, like the 1500 and such, because they used a nylon bushing that once dirt collected in it, it actually would actually slow the speed down. In this case, the motor would not come up to speed. So we either have a motor problem or we have a power supply problem. Underneath this black box, we took it apart, is some of the power supply area. And here's the main power supply. We have a nice little toroidal transformer. And the first thing we did after that was to proceed to each one of these jumpers, is to unplug them and replug them, seeing if the connections themselves had oxidized and were frustrating transfer of current. And there was a half dozen under here. We did all that to no avail. None of the caps look like they're bowed or expanding. So we have a little more of a complex problem. This is where you get to calling it a day. On the street, this machine working is roughly worth about $300, $350, because this is one of the early ones. And it was an okay machine. I wouldn't say that it was stellar in performance by any stretch of the imagination. I certainly preferred California Audio Labs by a long shot. But given the value of the machine and what it would cost now to get into it and repair it, you're essentially going to put in repair probably what it would cost to buy one that was already working in the field. And of course, when you're talking about older machines and you repair them, you're not getting a manufacturer's warranty. Uh, you're also dealing with essentially older designs all the way around. So, something from Cambridge Audio as a CD player would outperform this machine pretty quickly. And then you can get into the Rigas, and there's all sorts of brands out of there. We're talking, CD players that are not, $20,000 and $30,000. They're not AccuPhase units and that sort of thing. But this is kind of an interesting problem. It also gave me an opportunity, as we took this thing apart, is if you look at it, you can see that the entire contents in boards, probably if you put it on a postage scale, might come in at 3 pounds. So I want to show you what some manufacturers would do. Class A was not the only one, not an exception. So I'm just setting up a postal scale, and we've got it on pounds, and I merely take the lid, and I put the lid on the scale, and what do we got? We've already got 4.5 pounds of steel, and we take this, we'll just put it on the machine. Now we're going to weigh the whole thing. And we come in at that. Now, this is something that a lot of manufacturers would do. I first encountered this with Japanese products in the late 70s, and that is customers would pick up a unit and say, my God, it's got to have a lot of stuff in it and a big power supply. Well, as we showed you, this is the power supply, okay? Maybe 2 pounds, probably a pound. So all of the weight is because you're using heavy gauge steel. And while you might think that having a heavy gauge steel is an ideal thing, actually not. Some of the manufacturers, this first experience was out of the UK, then California Audio Labs did it in their machines. The chassis were all made out of aluminum. And so when you picked them up, they were just lighter than bejesus, and you thought you were being cheated in a sense, until you understood the reason why. You see, steel transfers magnetic fields. So if you have a refrigerator, that's why your magnets stick on it, but aluminum does not. So if you're talking about critical circuitry and you don't want it interfering with each other, having aluminum chassis, while lightweight and not feeling like you were getting anything, is actually performance-wise an advantage. But this is very, very common. So what do we have? Like 15 pounds, and we get, pay me 3 pounds of guts. So 12 pounds is basically in steel. We have a lovely machined faceplate. This is probably aluminum, but beyond that, it's a lot of fluff, would be the best way of putting it. So in the case of this machine, we've got a machine that is not easily repaired. A belt is a really cheap thing, and I show people these because you can buy the belt and do it yourself at home. You don't have to pay a service shop $125 to tell you, oh, you needed a new drive belt. And the drive belt that went into this thing probably cost me like 39 cents. And so you'll see them out on eBay for 15 bucks. I just can't understand where they get there, but what the hell. So this machine is essentially what we call BER, beyond economic repair. It doesn't make sense to repair it. And it was a good friend for as many years as it lasted, but now it's not, and it's essentially scrap. We ran into this also earlier today when someone had a 23-year-old B&W subwoofer, one of the earlier ones. And again, the technology in the speaker area alone has advanced significantly, particularly subwoofers. And to get into it and repair it, if that subwoofer could fetch $200 on the open market working, been lucky. And it just doesn't make sense to go sinking $200, $300, $400 into getting its repair. We have a rail subwoofer that we know what's wrong with the board, but the centers that will work on them, they'll do swaps and they charge $300 just for the power supply board. And it's just like, why? You know, unless you're really married to the damn thing, there's no reason to stay in that mode. So I just wanted to show you again how easy it is to repair some CD players. Some of the problems you can run into. We did all the simple things, and now it's into tearing it down and checking the circuitry and stuff, and there goes the value. So I just assume I'm going to give the customer his inspection fee towards a new unit, call it a day, and they'll have a 3 to 5 year warranty and a hell of a lot better sound. And there we are.